So now let's take a look at a developer's role as we transition into a volume business. Before we do that, we should probably look at a couple of definitions and some concepts here to keep us oriented before we dive into the details. First off, the value in value-added reseller really needs to extend beyond services now as we move to a higher volume of business. And if you're an ISV, a lot of this is already taking place. But for those of you in the CRM and the ERP business, we need to be looking at what product can we develop and extend over a time, because this is going to be the key to our profitability long term. So product development and core product creation is really a profit center as we move forward, as opposed to project customizations or the on-premise traditional style of projects we're used to are really managed through utilization of staff. So this is a very important distinction to make here. Profit center versus utilization. And as we move into this, the world of creating products, really, the ISVs have been here before us. And even though these organizations are going to require upgrades to their product development practices, because we're now getting into a place where the volume is greater, if you're implementing your products yourself, your implementation processes are going to have to be streamlined, even as an ISV. Of course, if you don't implement yourself, you're using a channel, the same thing's going to apply to your channels. So what needs to change in the developer's role as we make this transition from a lower to a higher volume business? Let's look at this. So, what we're going to do here is take a kind of a position or a look at kind of project versus product. In the traditional sense of our business, we've been project-oriented, and in a sense, we've treated each project as a unique implementation. Even though there may be similarities, oftentimes we start from scratch and we repeat or reinvent as we go along. All projects typically use the same pool of staff, although many of our partners now are getting a little bit more sophisticated with defined domain expertise and teams and whatnot. Oftentimes, from a developer's point of view, we are pooled together and use on all sorts of different projects. And as I mentioned before, utilization is a focus on a project-oriented team and business. There's often a wide range of skills when it comes to developers on the project-oriented team. Some have just started, others have years of experience, a lot of domain expertise, and everything in between. Project methodologies, this is project control methodologies. Things like SureStep are often optional or partially adopted or hybridized, or we have created our own, and they're not taken terribly seriously. In the project environment as well, we react to customer requests. This is where a lot of our customizations come from. Often we say yes. Most likely we'll get paid for it on a one-time basis. Now, that's historical. This is how we do business today on a project-oriented environment. Let's take a look at some of the characteristics we'd be facing here as we move to a more product-oriented environment. So customizations, really, as a programmer, you're going to see customizations are going to become a rare thing or a rarer thing. There's out of the box is going to be more the mantra in the volume business. Integration, though, is going to be more the likely work that you'll be facing as organizations want to tie systems together. Data integration and systems integration are going to be more important. Your skills are moderate. This is as a developer. But as we get into more sophisticated products and in more sophisticated product development environments, this will change and your skill levels will increase over time. Developer, your role is going to be greatly reduced in the traditional sense. We are going to be moving more towards product development programmers and developers, if you will, and less of the ad hoc customization role. So some of the challenges that we face here, from a project-oriented developer's perspective, really we're looking here at a wide range of utilization. We call it slack. This is the swings between the high and low of being used. And this, of course, happens as a result of customer and project demands and the inability to anticipate when our developers are going to be needed in the short, medium, and long term. Generally, we have poor project control methods, which again allow projects to spin out of control, creep in scope, and introduce risk at places that impact profitability dramatically. Sloppy documentation reduces these handoffs between analyst and programmer, between programmer and tester, between end user and the partner. The learning curve is steep on each project. As we continue to look at one-off type implementations, we move between industries, and we look at projects from a unique perspective. Each time our project teams get involved, there's a steep learning curve. Again, this impacts profitability and repeatability dramatically. Customizations are often difficult to repeat. Now, as some partners have found, reusing their IP library for commonly used customizations, smart move. It is, though, the first step towards creating your core product. But many partners struggle with this ability to reuse their intellectual property, the customizations that are really sitting on the shelf they've done in the past. And then, of course, testing is not well controlled either. And part of this has to do with just the nature of the work we do, the roles we have, the definitions of the roles, the poor project methodology adoption, the practices, etc. And I mentioned scope creep before, but as we try to wrestle with all of these complexities and increase risks in these project-oriented environments, we need to get better. But as we move towards a volume business, these challenges become detrimental. Now, for the ISV, you're probably doing a lot of this work that we're going to talk about, and a lot of these roles are going to be similar. There's a wide range of structures and disciplines in play right now in the ISV world. Some are very well defined and have been doing core product development for quite some time and have figured out good practices, good methods, have attracted the talented people and managed the product development cycle extremely well. Others have entered the game a little bit later and are still struggling. So it is hard to put a really good crystal clear picture of the historical environment what the ISV is playing. But our experience has been almost all ISVs can up their game. All right? And what we're going to be talking about here is how that game can be upped by looking at some very specific roles. For instance, the product manager, the product development manager, developers, testing, and the use of agile or some hybrid agile development methodology. So let's take a look at these individual roles. So, the roles that are going to need to exist from a development point of view as a core product development environment starts with a product manager. Now, Typically, historically, this position has been non-existent at a VAR. Many ISVs have had them and have role matched them. Some have it as a succinct function. But as we move forward and get into a higher volume business, we need to think about this role, this individual, and what their responsibilities are and their skills. Now, really, this function reports to the marketing department. They need to be have their ear to the marketplace, listening to customer demands, looking at the competition to find out what goes next in our product, feature, function, and form. They also validate all new features. As they collect, they will validate the features that go into the product, and they really build a roadmap for when and what goes into the product in what stage. Typically, these folks have a tremendous amount of industry knowledge. They have domain expertise, whether it's manufacturing or distribution, professional services, or whatnot. And again, they'll conduct the market research, and they will be in touch with existing customers, be getting feedback from those customers about what's missing and what's next. And generally, they're technically conversant, although they probably aren't programmers. They may have been in the past, but they certainly understand what's possible and what's capable from a technical point of view. Now, let's take a look at another role here that probably doesn't exist very frequently in our channel, regardless of whether you're a VAR or an ISV. Certainly, we haven't seen this product development manager or program manager in too many VARs, and it's a rare thing within an ISV. Pick your terminology, but the product development manager really, their job is to allocate tasks to the programmers. They divvy up the work to the development staff. Think of them as a technical project manager. Oftentimes, as you mash roles, this may be a senior developer who has enough management skill to work in the development cycles and manage resources. This individual really uses the agile or hybrid release cycles very well and assigns tasks and who works on what, and then monitors activities. They also create work estimates, how long each sprint cycle or each code unit is going to take to develop. And they are, as mentioned, a technical-oriented individual here, a technical person. Okay. Now, let's look at the core product developer or programmer in some circles terms here. Historically, these folks have been basic to good programming skills. But there's been limited standards for coding. Whether you're an ISV or you're a VAR that have produced customizations and some IP, there's often been a lack of discipline around the structure for coding, documentation, testing, etc. They often code to customer demands one time, and again, we've mentioned this before. But let's take a look at what happens now as we move into this volume business. And we need to look at the type of skills here. Typically, the programming skills are stronger or greater in the core product development environment. You need to have very specialized skills and very sharp skills because we need to work well in a team and we need to work fast. And the better the skills, the better the experience, the easier it is to transition into adopting, for instance, higher coding standards or adopting a development cycle, and doing thorough documentation and embracing better testing protocols. The transition is just made easier and is in the end more profitable if you can get the higher skilled staff. And again, remember, we're going to code to development cycles, a roadmap, if you will. And if you use the agile approach, these are sprint cycles. We're designing products that are may be or will be customized by others, so the code needs to be stronger. Certainly, a lot of the code will be configured by others. So we just need to be tighter and cleaner and smarter with the work that we do here. The test engineer now is a role, again, that is mashed heavily in our current environments. And oftentimes we get end users involved, we get various folks within our own organization. But as we move to the volume business here, we're looking at much larger volume ISVs now, larger companies to have this test engineer role in play. And this individual really controls the entire testing process. So they create the test cases and manage all the processes and results around testing the code before it leaves the white box, if you will, and moves out into to be touched and tested by the end users. They write test scripts. Oftentimes, these individuals will conduct complex tests themselves to control the testing procedure and to ensure the quality. And they will also validate the design of the product at the testing stage to make certain that we are on spec to the roadmap, to the feature function set that has been set out. Now, this individual here is fairly standard as you move up the chain, if you will, into more formal and larger software development environments. The test engineer is a pretty common role. As we transition into this role, what you'll find is you probably want to, again, role mesh, identify somebody in the organization that has this responsibility. And as the activity grows in volume and the urgency and need for this individual increases, you break that role off and create a separate career path for them. So that concludes the transition roles for the developer as we move from the project to a core product development environment.